No U.S. Marine sniper could hit the 200-yard target at Quantico. 8 attempts, 8 misses. The wind was impossible, they said. Then an old man in a red flannel shirt stepped forward. "May I try?" A Marine laughed. "That rifle belongs in a museum, old man." 3 weeks later, the Pentagon would classify what happened next. But right now, the Marines just watched as the old man smiled and said, "So do I." Some legends don't fade. They wait. Where are you watching this story from? Let us know in the comments. If this journey of valor touched you, consider subscribing to Silent Veterans and help us give a voice to more incredible stories of our silent veterans. Is this some kind of joke? Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Reeves's voice cut across the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School firing range at Quantico, Virginia. He stood behind the firing line, arms crossed, watching his 8th student of the day fail to connect with the target. The shot echoed across the range. Through his spotting scope, Reeves saw the miss, 3 feet left of the steel silhouette at 200 yards. "God damn it," the shooter muttered, working the bolt on his M40A6 sniper rifle. "That's 8 for 8, Reeves said, his voice tight with frustration. 8 qualified scout snipers, 0 hits. Someone tell me what's happening." The wind was the problem. It whipped across the Quantico training grounds in chaotic patterns, gusting from multiple directions, creating conditions that made long-range precision nearly impossible. The flags at 400, 800, and 1,000 yards all told different stories. Staff Sergeant Chen, the range safety officer, checked his portable weather station. Winds gusting 15 to 25 knots, shifting between southwest and west-northwest every 30 seconds. Temperature gradient is creating thermals. It's textbook impossible conditions. "Gunny, impossible isn't acceptable," Reeves snapped. "As these Marines are going to combat zones where conditions are never perfect, they need to make the shot." He was about to call the exercise when movement caught his eye. An old man was walking toward the firing line from the observation area, maybe 78 years old, lean and weathered, wearing a red and blue flannel shirt, faded jeans, and a baseball cap with some kind of military patch on it. His white beard was neatly trimmed, and he moved with a slight limp, his right knee not quite bending properly. But what caught Reeves's attention was what the old man was carrying, a long rifle case, worn and battered. Reeves stepped forward. "Sir, this is an active training range. Civilians aren't authorized beyond the observation line." The old man stopped, set down the case gently. "Master Gunnery Sergeant Chavez cleared me, said I could watch the advanced students." Master Guns Chavez was the senior enlisted advisor for the Scout Sniper School. If he'd cleared this old man, there was a reason. "You a former Marine, sir?" "Once upon a time." One of the students, Corporal Jackson, walked over. He was cocky, fresh off a successful deployment, and hadn't appreciated missing the target 5 times. "Sir, you've been watching us fail all morning. You think you could do better?" The old man looked at him with pale gray eyes that seemed to measure everything. "Maybe, if you'd let me try." Jackson laughed. "Try? With what? Your grandpa's deer rifle?" "Something like that." The old man gestured to the modern M40A6 sitting on the shooting bench. "May I try with your rifle first?" Reeves should have said no, but something about the old man's quiet confidence made him curious. "1 shot, sir. Show us what the old Corps could do." The old man nodded. He walked to the firing line, picked up the M40A6, examined it with the efficiency of someone who'd handled thousands of weapons. He checked the action, looked through the scope, tested the trigger pull. Then he got into position, not prone but seated, cross-legged on the ground, bringing the rifle up in a sitting position that seemed impossible for someone his age. "Seated at 200 yards?" Jackson scoffed. "In this wind? Okay, Grandpa. Good luck." The old man settled. His breathing slowed. Through the spotting scope, Reeves watched his face go perfectly still, his eyes half closed, reading something in the wind that none of them could see. He fired. Chen watched through his scope. "Missed right about 2 feet. Close, but..." The old man stood, set down the M40A6, and walked back to his rifle case. "Modern rifles are good, but they're not zeroed for me. May I use my own?" "What have you got in there?" Reeves asked. The old man opened the case. Inside was a rifle that made every Marine on the line stop and stare. It was an M40, the original variant from Vietnam. The woodstock was dark with age and oil, scarred with dents that told stories. The bluing on the barrel was worn in places. The scope was simple, ancient by modern standards. Jackson's laugh was loud and mocking. That belongs in a museum, old man. What is that? 50 years old? The old man lifted the rifle out carefully, almost reverently. 53 years. Built in 1970. I've carried it longer than you've been alive. You can't seriously think that antique's going to hit what our modern weapons can't. The old man looked at Jackson with those pale eyes. So do I. Belong in a museum. But I'm still here, still shooting, still remembering things you never learned. He walked back to the firing line, got into that same seated position, brought the ancient M40 to his shoulder. Reeves noticed something then, a small object tucked into the old man's shirt pocket. Something that caught the light. Metal. Worn. The old man's breathing slowed. His body went perfectly still. He wasn't watching the flags anymore. He was watching the grass between stations, the way heat shimmered. Things Reeves couldn't see, but somehow this old man could. The wind gusted. 22 knots from the southwest. The target flags whipped violently. The old man fired. The crack of the ancient M40 was different from modern rifles, sharper, somehow more final. Chen's voice came through shocked and disbelieving. Impact. Dead center. Perfect center mass hit. The range went absolutely silent except for the wind. Jackson's mouth hung open. The other students were frozen. The old man worked the bolt, ejected the spent casing, caught it in his palm. He stood slowly, began placing the rifle back in its case. That's impossible, Jackson breathed. That rifle's older than... How did you... The rifle's not the problem, the old man said quietly. The shooter is... You were all fighting the wind. I was working with it. Reeves found his voice. Sir, who are you? The old man reached into his pocket and pulled out the object Reeves had noticed. A challenge coin. Old, scratched, barely legible. He set it on the shooting bench. On one side, the Marine Corps sniper emblem. On the other, just visible. Ghost 7 Phoenix Program, 1972-1975. Chen picked it up, his hands shaking. Phoenix Program, that was the assassination program. The classified missions. My name is John Miller, the old man said. Sergeant 1st Marine Division Scout Sniper Platoon. I was declared KIA in 1972 during a classified rescue operation. After that, I didn't exist, which made me perfect for missions that didn't exist either. Jackson's cockiness had evaporated. You're saying you were a Phoenix operator? Solo missions behind enemy lines? Eliminating high-value targets? I'm saying I did what needed to be done. For 3 years. Alone. In conditions that make this wind look like a gentle breeze. Miller looked at each student. And I did it with this rifle. No computers. No advanced optics. No weather stations. Just fundamentals and the will to make impossible shots because Marines were dying and someone had to stop it. Master Gunnery Sergeant Chavez appeared from the admin building, walking quickly. He was 62, a legend in the sniper community. When he saw Miller standing at the firing line, he smiled. John, you actually shot. Your students needed to see it, needed to understand that technology fails, equipment breaks, but skill, real skill, that never goes obsolete. Chavez looked at Reeves and the assembled students. Marines, Gunnery Sergeant John Miller isn't in any official records because officially, he's been dead for 53 years. But he's trained more scout snipers than anyone alive. He taught me. And if he's willing, he'll teach you. Miller picked up his challenge coin, held it so the light caught what was left of the engraving. I'm old. I'm supposed to be dead, but I remember things. Things Carlos Hathcock taught me. Things I learned in places that don't exist on any map. And I'll teach you those things. Not because you need to be heroes, but because you need to come home. He looked at Jackson. You said my rifle belongs in a museum. You're right. So do I. But museums are full of things that worked, things that mattered, things that saved lives. He tapped the ancient M40. This rifle killed enemy officers who were sending Marines into ambushes. It stopped convoys carrying weapons to kill Americans. It gave our boys a chance to come home. His voice hardened. And if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to set aside your ego and your technology and your certainty that new is always better, I'll teach you how to make those shots. The impossible ones. The ones that matter. Reeves felt the air shift. This wasn't just about marksmanship. This was about legacy. About passing forward knowledge that couldn't be found in manuals. "Sir," Reeves said carefully, "we'd be honored to learn from you." Miller nodded slowly. "Good. Then we start tomorrow. 0500. And bring your old rifles. The ones you think are obsolete. Because I'm going to show you why the fundamentals never die." He picked up his rifle case and started to walk away. "Sir," Chen called out, "what does Ghost 7 mean?" Miller stopped. Didn't turn around. "It means I was the 7th operator in a program where the first 6 didn't survive long enough to teach anyone what they learned. It means I'm the only one left who remembers how we did it. And it means I'm running out of time to pass it forward before those lessons die with me." He walked away, leaving 23 Marines staring at a challenge coin that proved ghosts were real, and that some legends don't fade. They just wait for the right moment to teach the next generation what survival really costs. The next morning at 0500, 23 Marines stood in the pre-dawn darkness at Range 14, the most remote firing range at Quantico. They'd brought their old rifles as instructed, M40A1s, some A3s, weapons that had been cycled out of active service but kept for training purposes. John Miller arrived in an old Ford pickup, carrying his rifle case in a worn canvas bag. He moved slowly in the cold, his limp more pronounced, but his eyes were sharp. Gunnery Sergeant Reeves stepped forward. "All present, sir, ready for instruction." Miller surveyed the group. "How many of you think you're here to learn trick shots?" 5 hands went up hesitantly. "Put your hands down. I don't teach tricks. I teach survival." He set down his bag. "In 3 weeks, the Marine Corps is hosting a Joint Forces sniper competition here at Quantico. Best snipers from Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. The final challenge is a 1,400-yard cold bore shot in variable wind conditions. Last year, 0 shooters made the hit. The year before, 1 out of 43. He pulled out a folder, handed it to Reeves. "That's the target specs and historical weather data. The shot is designed to be nearly impossible, and the Marine Corps has never won." Jackson spoke up. "So you're training us to win a competition? I'm training you to make shots that competitions don't simulate. But along the way, yes, you'll beat those other services, because you'll understand something they don't." "What's that?" Miller opened his rifle case, pulled out the ancient M40. "That technology makes you dependent. Fundamentals make you dangerous." For the next 12 days, Miller put the Marines through training that existed nowhere in official doctrine. He taught them to read wind, not with instruments, but with grass movement, insect behavior, the way sound carried. He taught them to judge distance by the time it took for echoes to return from valley walls. He taught them to shoot in positions the modern manuals said were impossible, sitting, kneeling, even standing when necessary. And every lesson came with a story. "Quang Tri Province, 1973, Miller said during a session on shooting in crosswinds. "I had a target, North Vietnamese colonel coordinating rocket attacks on Firebase Barbara. He was only exposed for 30 seconds every morning when he inspected his troops. Wind was gusting 20 knots, shifting every 10 seconds. I couldn't use a wind meter because I was buried in a hide site 70 yards from his command post. The Marines listened, transfixed. So I watched the grass, watched how it moved in waves, learned the rhythm, counted the seconds between gusts. And when he stepped out that morning, I waited for the pattern, let the gust pass. Fired in the lull, 740 yards. He went down. The rocket attack stopped. 17 Marines at Barbara lived because I understood rhythm. He made them practice for hours, not shooting, just watching, learning to see what the wind was doing, not what the instrument said it was doing. Corporal Jackson, who'd started cocky, was transformed. Sir, how many missions did you run? Miller was quiet for a long moment. 37 confirmed. Maybe more that weren't documented. I stopped counting when I realized the number didn't matter. The only number that mattered was how many Marines came home because the targets didn't. Did you ever miss? Miller's face hardened. Twice. Once in Laos. Provincial governor who was coordinating ambushes. Wind shifted at the last second. I missed by 6 inches, hit his bodyguard instead. The governor survived. 3 days later, a Marine patrol walked into an ambush he'd set. 4 killed, 7 wounded. The range went silent. I went back a week later, found him again, didn't miss the second time. But those 4 Marines were still dead. That's the cost of failure in this work. It's not a missed target. It's American lives. He looked at Jackson. So when you ask if your rifle belongs in a museum, understand what you're really asking. You're asking if the skills that kept Marines alive are obsolete. If the lessons learned in blood don't matter anymore because you've got better equipment. Miller picked up his M40. This rifle is 53 years old. But the physics haven't changed. The wind still works the same way. Gravity still pulls bullets down. And Marines still die when snipers miss. So no, this rifle doesn't belong in a museum. It belongs here, teaching you that technology is a tool, not a replacement for skill. On day 10, Miller pulled out the challenge coin again, set it on the shooting bench where everyone could see it. Phoenix program recruited 7 operators, Ghost 1 through Ghost 7. I was last because I was youngest. They thought the experienced ones would survive longer. His voice was hollow. Ghost 1, killed in 3 months, ambushed during extraction. Ghost 2, captured, tortured, executed. We found his body with a sign, American Assassin. Ghost 3 and Ghost 4, killed when their hide site was compromised. Ghost 5, disappeared, never found, presumed captured or killed. He touched the coin gently. Ghost 6 was Danny Morrison, 26 years old. Brooklyn. He lasted 11 months. Taught me everything about surviving behind enemy lines. He took a round through the chest during a mission near Da Nang. I carried him 8 miles to an extraction point. He died in the helicopter with his head in my lap. Last thing he said, make sure they remember it mattered. Staff Sergeant Chen's voice was thick. Sir, that's why you're here. To make sure we remember. I'm here because Danny Morrison bled out, asking me to make sure the lessons didn't die with him. Because Ghost 1 through Ghost 6 paid for this knowledge with their lives. Because I'm 81 years old and when I die, if I haven't passed this forward, those men died for nothing. He picked up the coin. This isn't just a memento. It's a debt. And I'm paying it by making sure you know what they knew. So when you're in combat, when conditions are impossible, when your equipment fails, you remember that 6 men died learning these lessons. And you use what they bought with their blood to bring your brothers home. The training intensified. Miller pushed them harder, demanded more. Shots in the dark using only starlight. Shots at moving targets. Shots from improvised positions. And slowly, impossibly, they improved. By day 12, Jackson made a 300-yard shot in 20-knot crosswinds using an old M40A3 and no ballistic computer. Just wind reading. Just fundamentals. He stood up from the rifle, tears in his eyes. I did it. I made the shot. Miller nodded. Now do it 9 more times. Because once isn't skill, once is luck. Skill is making it when it matters. Every time. 3 days before the competition, Master Gunnery Sergeant Chavez pulled Miller aside. John, I need to tell you something. The Commandant's office called. They want to know who's training my students. There's been chatter about Phoenix program, about ghost operators, about classified missions. Miller's expression didn't change. Someone talked. The students didn't, but someone noticed the improvement, started asking questions. And when questions get asked about Phoenix, people at the Pentagon get nervous. They want me gone. They want you to stop teaching, to disappear again, to let it stay buried. Chavez's voice was hard. I told them to go to hell. But you need to know after the competition, they're going to come for you, debrief you, maybe worse. Miller looked at the range where his students were practicing. Then we have 3 days. Better make them count. On the morning of the competition, 23 Marines stood at the firing line with their old rifles. Across from them, 40 other snipers from every service, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Air Force Special Operations, stood with the most advanced sniper systems in the world. The final challenge, 400 yards, variable crosswinds, cold bore shot. One attempt. The Army shooters went first. Modern rifles, ballistic computers, wind meters, 5 attempts, 5 misses. Navy, 4 attempts, 1 hit at the edge of the target zone, not center mass. Air Force, 6 attempts, 2 hits, both marginal. Then the Marines. Jackson stepped up first, old M40A3, simple scope, no computer. He settled into that seated position Miller had taught them. Watched the grass, felt the rhythm, waited. He fired. Impact. Center mass. The range erupted. The judges were stunned. One after another, Miller's students stepped up, using old rifles, using fundamentals, using lessons bought with blood in jungles 50 years gone. 18 of 23 made center mass hits. The Marine Corps swept the competition, and every other service wanted to know how. But by the time the award ceremony finished, John Miller was gone. His truck was empty. His rifle case was sitting on Reeves's desk with a note. "The coin is yours now. Pass it forward when the time is right. The lessons don't belong to me. They belong to the Marines who paid for them. Make sure they're never forgotten. Go 7. And tucked inside the rifle case, wrapped in cloth like a sacred relic, was the ancient M40 that had served in wars no one could talk about. The rifle that belonged in a museum, but had one more mission to complete. 2 weeks after the competition, Gunnery Sergeant Reeves sat in a classified briefing room at the Pentagon. Across the table sat 3 men in civilian suits and a Navy captain with intelligence insignia. "Gunnery Sergeant, we need to know everything about John Miller." Reeves kept his face neutral. "I know what I told you in my report, sir. He showed up, taught fundamentals, left before we could thank him properly." The lead civilian, name tag read, Morrison, Defense Intelligence Agency, slid a photograph across the table. Black and white, Vietnam era. A young Marine in jungle utilities holding an M40 rifle. Even through 50 years of aging, Reeves recognized the eyes. Sergeant John Miller, declared KIA on April 3, 1972, during Operation Scott Orchard, a classified mission to extract a CIA asset from Quang Tri Province. His body was never recovered. Officially, he died in that jungle. Morrison pulled out another photo, recent, grainy surveillance footage from Quantico's main gate, Miller's truck. Unofficially, he's been alive for 53 years. "And we need to know what he told your Marines about Phoenix program." Reeves met Morrison's eyes. "He taught us to read wind, to trust fundamentals, to make impossible shots. That's all." "That's not all, Sergeant. Phoenix program was buried for a reason. 7 operators, 7 ghosts. What they did, who they killed, the missions they ran, all of it classified beyond top secret. If Miller talked about those operations, he told war stories." Reeves interrupted. "Like every old Marine, nothing classified." The Navy captain leaned forward. "Gunnery Sergeant, Phoenix operators were assassination specialists. They eliminated targets U.S. policy officially denied touching. Village chiefs, provincial governors, NVA officers. We need to know if he revealed targeting criteria, decision-making protocols, anything that could expose." "He taught us to shoot," Reeves said flatly. "Sir." Morrison's jaw tightened. "And where is he now?" "I don't know, sir. His truck was found abandoned at a rest stop in West Virginia. His rifle case was delivered to you. He vanished. You expect us to believe you have no idea where one of the most dangerous men the Marine Corps ever created disappeared to." Reeves said nothing. Morrison stood. "You're protecting him. Fine. But understand this. John Miller doesn't exist. He can't have a bank account, can't have property in his name, can't exist in any official capacity. He's been living as a ghost for 5 decades. So when you see him again, and you will, you tell him that some ghosts need to stay dead. For everyone's sake. The briefing ended. Reeves was dismissed. He drove back to Quantico, went to his office, and found Corporal Jackson waiting. "Gunny, we need to talk about Miller." "Not here." Reeves grabbed the rifle case. "Range 14 now." 30 minutes later, all 23 Marines stood at the remote range. Reeves set the rifle case on the shooting bench, pulled out the ancient M40, the challenge coin. "They want him buried again," Reeves said. "Pentagon, DIA, probably CIA too. They want Phoenix program to stay classified. Want Miller to disappear. To never teach anyone again." Staff Sergeant Chen's voice was hard. "They're afraid. Afraid of what we know. What we can do." "No." Everyone turned. Master Gunnery Sergeant Chavez was walking up, carrying a file folder. "They're afraid of what Miller represents. Proof that skills matter more than technology, that the old ways worked, that maybe we've spent billions on equipment when we should have spent it on training." He opened the folder. Inside were orders, official Marine Corps documents. "I pulled strings, called in every favor I had, and I got approval to create a new training program, Scout Sniper Heritage Course, dedicated to teaching traditional fieldcraft and fundamentals, and I need an instructor." He looked at Reeves. Someone who learned from the best, someone who understands what Miller was trying to pass forward. Reeves understood. "You want me to teach what he taught us. I want you to make sure those 6 ghost operators didn't die for nothing. That Danny Morrison's sacrifice meant something. That John Miller's 53 years of hiding and waiting and surviving had a purpose." Chavez pulled out another document, a name, an address. "Miller owns a cabin, Montana, middle of nowhere. Bought it in 1975 under a false identity that's held up for 50 years. He's there, I know because I helped him buy it. I was 19, fresh out of boot camp, working as a clerk. He needed someone who could process paperwork quietly. I did it. Never told anyone, kept his secret for 46 years. He handed the address to Reeves. "Go see him. Tell him his lessons are now official Marine Corps doctrine. Tell him the debt is paid. Tell him Danny Morrison would be proud." 3 days later, Reeves drove 18 hours to Montana, found a dirt road leading into mountains, followed it to a cabin built into the side of a ridge, positioned with perfect sight lines in all directions. Miller was sitting on the porch, the ancient M40 across his lap, watching the road. "Figured someone would come eventually," Miller called out. "Hoping it was you." Reeves got out, carrying the challenge coin. "The Pentagon wants you gone. Buried. Forgotten. They always did." Miller gestured to a chair. "But you didn't drive 18 hours to tell me what I already know." Reeves sat, pulled out the orders. "Heritage course. Official training. Teaching everything you taught us. Chavez got it approved. He wants me to run it." Miller took the papers, read them slowly. His hands trembled slightly. "Danny Morrison," Miller said softly. "Ghost 6. Brooklyn. He didn't just teach me to survive. He taught me why it mattered. Said every kill bought time for someone to go home. Every mission stopped American blood from being spilled. And he said if we didn't pass it forward, if we died and took it with us, then we were just killers. But if we taught it, if we made sure the next generation knew, then we were Marines." He looked up, and Reeves saw tears in those pale gray eyes. "He died asking me to promise, to make sure they remembered, all of them, Ghost 1 through Ghost 6, to make sure their sacrifices weren't buried with their bodies." Miller's voice broke. "I've been keeping that promise for 53 years, hiding, teaching when I could, waiting for the chance to make it matter." Reeves held up the coin. "It matters. 18 Marines made impossible shots because of you, and now hundreds more will learn. The debt is paid, sir. You can rest." Miller took the coin, held it like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Ghost 1 was Tommy Chen, 24, California. First kill saved a platoon pinned by enemy fire. Ghost 2, Marcus Jackson, Georgia. Stopped a massacre of villagers helping Marines. Ghost 3 and Ghost 4, the Rodriguez brothers, Texas, died together covering an extraction. Ghost 5, Sarah Mitchell, first female operator, disappeared protecting an agent network. and Danny Morrison. Danny, who bled out in my arms asking me to promise. He closed his hand around the coin. I promised him, Gunny, promised I'd make it mean something, and you're telling me it does. Yes, sir, because of you, because of what you taught us. We'll never forget, and we'll pass it forward. To every Marine who needs to make the impossible shot, who needs to come home, who needs to understand that skills and fundamentals and sacrifice, they never become obsolete. Miller nodded slowly, stood, walked into the cabin, came back carrying 6 challenge coins, identical to his Ghost 1 through Ghost 6. I recovered these from their bodies, from mission sites. Been carrying them 53 years, waiting to pass them forward. He handed them to Reeves. Give them to your best students. Tell them whose coins they carry. Tell them the names. Make sure those 6 Marines are never forgotten. Reeves took them, felt the weight of history in his hands. One more thing, Miller said. He picked up the M40. This rifle killed enemy officers who were sending Marines into ambushes, stopped convoys, saved lives. But it's time. He handed it to Reeves. Put it in your schoolhouse. Display it. And when students ask about it, tell them it belonged to a ghost. Tell them why ghosts existed. And tell them that every time they make a shot, they're honoring every Marine who came before. Reeves took the rifle carefully. Sir, the Marines at that range, they want to thank you. Want to? No. Miller shook his head. I don't need thanks. I needed to keep a promise. And you're telling me I kept it. That's enough. He looked out at the mountains, at the valley below, at distances only snipers measure. I've been dead for 53 years, Gunny. Maybe it's time I stayed that way. But now when I disappear knowing that Danny Morrison's last request was honored. That Ghost 1 through Ghost 6 didn't die for nothing. That their lessons will save Marines for generations. He smiled. And for the first time since Reeves met him, Miller looked at peace. Some legends don't fade. They wait. And I waited long enough. Now it's your turn to carry it forward. Reeves stood, came to attention, saluted. Miller returned it, sharp, perfect, a salute that bridged 5 decades of sacrifice. Semper Fi, Gunnery Sergeant. Semper Fi, Ghost 7. Reeves drove away carrying an ancient rifle, 7 challenge coins, and a promise to never let the fallen be forgotten. Behind him, an old man stood on a porch, watching the distance, finally released from a debt carried across 53 years. Some legends don't fade. They just wait for the right moment to pass the torch and ensure that those who paid the price are never forgotten.